Magandang araw po mga kaibigan. Nasa isang special edition ang ating Tapatan sa Aristocrat ngayong araw na ito. Pag-uusapan natin ang naganap sa Mama Sapano sa Maguindanao at kung saan makararating ang BBL. Ano ba ang sitwasyon on the ground? Ano ba ang pananaw ng mga otoridad tulad ni Chair Eta Rosales who took pains to come to Manila for this forum? Narito rin po naman kasama natin si Ginoong Eid Kabalu, dating spokesman ng Moro Islamic Liberation Front, si Father Jonathan Domingo, ang CEO ng Notre Broadcasting Corporation, at kasama rin natin si Father Jun Mercado, isang academician, dating Pangulo ng Notre Dame University sa Cotabato. Pag-usapan natin, ano ba talaga ang naganap at anong pwedeng gawin? Ito ba ang sinasabing straw that would break the camel's back? Ano ba ang feeling ng mga taga Maguindanao sa naganap? Ano ang pananaw at magagawa ng Commission on Human Rights? Let's start the ball rolling with the opening statements from the Chair of the Commission on Human Rights, Chair Eta Rosales. Good morning. How do you look at what happened at Mama Sapano? Please.
Well, first of all, thank you for this, Melo. No? But I think that like everybody else, we were shocked. And we condemn definitely the atrocities that were committed, the violent atrocities. As a matter of fact, as the widows had explained, brutal na brutal yung pagkapatay at pagkapaslang sa kanila. So, more than anything else, we support the call of the government to have an independent board of inquiry that should look into the matter. But it should do it na without a stone left unturned. Dapat yan ganap, lubos ang pag-iimbestiga. And there should be no cover-ups. I understand that there are several inquiries that are now being proposed. I think that the MILF is going to make its own inquiry too on the matter. There's this board of inquiry that was started by the government. And then again, there is an effort to have a truth commission, but I think that this was rejected by the government. So there are these several initiatives. Now, in the case of the CHR, while we condemn these atrocities, we ourselves are thinking of coming up with our own independent investigation on the matter from the human rights lens and also from the lens of international humanitarian law. So there you have it. Now, when we talk about human rights violations, already you talk about the human rights violations committed against the families of the 44 SAF officers and men. But outside of that, you can also talk about the human rights violations as a result of internal displacement. There have been more than 564 families that have been displaced, about 1,500 individuals from that barangay itself, and they've all transferred to the different barangays, including civilians who have been killed. I think there were 5 civilians that were killed, including a little 5-year-old girl, and then an undetermined number of injured, both civilians and combatants. So there you have it.
So, mukhang mahirap ang trabaho ninyo ngayon.
Mahirap talaga. Sa lahat, no, mahirap ang trabaho. Sapagkat mandate naman namin, ang flagship program namin, ang pumasok sa tinatawag na human rights-based approach to to the recovery of internal displaced persons at saka yung disaster preparedness. We go into the human rights aspect of this at saka yung recovery. But outside of that, we also have to investigate the atrocities committed from, again, a human rights lens. So kung titingnan mo, ang ginagawa namin ngayon ay actually during the period of the necro services, mabuti maaga ako nagpunta, mga 7:30 in the morning, wala pang mga tao, nakausap ko yung mga families So may privacy kami na nakapag-usap ng gusto. At nakita ko na they're coming from Kalinga, Ifugao, at saka Cagayan, Isabela. So I've actually gotten all the regional officers of the CHR to look into the matter. This afternoon, I'm going to talk to the Human Rights Affairs officers of the Philippine National Police. This is headed by General Biernes, and then the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Human Rights Officers, that's Colonel Motril, including yung sa Air Force, Philippine Navy, ganun yan. Mag-uusap kami in the afternoon. At bukas, pupunta ako sa Cotabato City para to do our initial efforts of investigating.
Sa inyo po pakikipag-usap doon sa pamilya, walang nang isnab sa inyo?
Ando. They were very appreciative dahil, they don't snub. But kung sila
Walang sama ng loob na pinaramdam sa inyo?
wala. Hindi. Well, masama ang loob nila, of course. Pero walang masama ng loob sa akin. Dahil sa, alam ninyo ito, mga pamilya ng mga kapulisan, kung dito farmers din to they are of humble stock. Kaya ako, lagi ko nga sinasabi, tumatagos sa anumang sektor ng lipunan, maging Muslim, maging police, maging sibilyan, maging sundalo, tumatagos yung kahirapan sa mga pamilya.
Okay.
At sa nakikita ko, diyan dapat tayo tumututok. No?
Okay. Maraming salamat po, Chairperson Etta Rosales. Father Jonathan Domingo, kayo po ay nasa Notre Broadcasting. Ano po yung initial reports na nakarating sa inyo? Dahilan sa linggo ito naganap. Ano ang initial reports? Were you able to confirm kaagad na mayroong mga casualties? Paano nakarating ang reports sa inyong himpilan ng radyo?
We were first informed of the incident via a call from a colleague. It was 3:30 in the afternoon of January 25, Sunday. Ang bakbakan nagsimula, umaga pa. The firefight was still ongoing when we were told by the text messages that came after the tipsters. We have a tipster there. So calls to the police regional office of the ARM in Pro-ARM and the 6ID did not yield much. They did not have details of the incident around that afternoon. The information we got at best was unofficial. 6ID said it was not a military operation and they had no involvement in it anyway. A ranking police officials told us it was an operation of the PNP SAP and it was best to get the information from the unit. That was January 25.
And then?
At that time, the question of whether or not coordination was done at the level of both units, 6ID and Pro-ARM, were already one of our big questions. Being in the area of proposed Bangsamoro and having religiously followed the peace process, we were very much aware of the existence of ceasefire agreement in which the matter of coordination during military or police operations in the areas where MILF forces are present is included. We understood that it was one of the reasons why the CHS and the ad hoc joint action group were formed by both parties. It was not until the next day, during our morning public affairs program, that we were able to get a verification of what happened. It did not come from the 6ID or the Pro-ARM, the police, who still had nothing too much to say to us. It was Bon Al-Haj, the spokesperson for the Bangsamoro Islamic Armed Forces, who confirmed to us that indeed there was an encounter between the fighters of the 105th Base Command of the MILF and the elements of PNP SAP. He said there were casualties of both sides, as many as 30. That was Monday, according to the reports they got from the field, and that the Bangsamoro Islamic Armed Forces also joined the fray. Al-Haq said that PNP SAP operation was not coordinated with them as should have been under the ceasefire agreement. He also said, which to our mind was very important and worth emphasizing, that it was clear to them that the MILF was not the target of the operation. It just happened that some elements of the PNP SAP entered an MILF enclave, fired, to which their men responded. He also said that the joint CCCH, along with the IMT, stepped in as fast as they can after learning of the incident to help stop the firefight and facilitate the extraction of the wounded policeman. That was Monday.
Okay.
And then later in the program, unti-unti nang nagkakaroon
Nag-filter
ng
yung reports.
yung mga reports, dumadami na ang namamatay. Dumating nga si Mar Rojas that Monday afternoon and hold the press conference. And then the next day, January 27.
Were your personnel able to cover the press conference?
Yes.
What did Mar Rojas say? Was he really kept in the dark as reported?
Yeah, the same was as a news. But the next day, we inquired about the possibility of going to Canalipao to get people's story about what happened. And they were told that it was not safe.
It was not
So
safe.
hindi nakapasok ang aming reportorial team doon. But in Mamasapano, our team learned the death of 2 civilians. One was a farmer who left behind a young wife of 19 and 2 children. His wife said her husband left early to charge his cell phone at the center of Tucanalipaw because they had no electricity in their home. She never thought that was the last time she would see him alive.
Wow.
According to Mayor of Tucanalipaw, he was a barangay captain, so he was found dead together with the SAP casualties. His hands were tied. Another casualty.
Pakiulit, yung kamay nung magsasaka ay nakagapos?
Nakagapos. So another casualty was a 5-year-old girl who was hit by bullets along with her parents trying to flee for safety. Among the wounded civilians was a young boy still in critical condition at the hospital as of Thursday. His family had already left their house, but his mother told him to go back to get their carabao. He was hit by a bullet while doing that. So much of the stories that came up from the media, especially radio and television, focused on the death of the PNP staff. Perhaps because it was more, sensational, the grieving aspect. It had more drama.
However, may drama rin sa local scene.
May drama sa local scene.
At ito isang trahedyang napakalaki. Napakahirap mawari.
Not much seemed to have been said about the death of MILF fighters, much less the civilians that bullets from the unidentified guns also killed and wounded.
Okay.
That's just the local media perspective.
How did the local media react to the number of casualties? Were they dumbfounded? Luhaan din ba sila? Dito, pati si Noli de Castro, naluluha ano po ang kanilang naging reaksyon?
Well, I think, alam ni Eid Kabalu, you're listening to XMS noon, hindi naman umiiyak si Kaluy doon Hindi naman ganon ka-sensational yung dating kasi I think this should be reminded for the media. Journalism is all about truth. And the discipline of verification of truth. Yun lang. We try to be balanced sa local media because andun kami. Andun yung mga tao. Nagpupunta kami sa field. We might be affected but we don't give that much commentary na nagpe-plain. I was listening to different radio station here. Merong facts, may truth, verified reports, but yung commentaries, sobra-sobra.
Suddenly, naging eksperto sa issue sa Mindanao.
Biglang dumagaling, biglang ganda naman talaga ang kalakaran, di ba? Local media ka lang, kami national. But sometimes at sa local media, andan yung facts and truth kasi mas malapit sila sa katotohanan.
Okay. How did the people react in the community?
Last, I really don't know, but ganun din. Much more influenced by the national media, the TV especially.
Okay.
And of course, the social media. Ang dami-daming graphics
Okay.
na nakuha ng national media, ibinigay sa somebody sa Facebook, kumalat.
Okay. We'll talk about it later from a human rights perspective. Mr. Eid Kabalu, you were once, dati kang spokesman ng MILF. Can you tell us, sa impormasyong natanggap mo sa Cotabato, ano yung naganap? Teka, pakilipat lang po ng mikropono natin. Yan. Sa harapan. Yan, okay.
Ito sa
Nagkataon lang pong kinapos tayo sa mikropono ngayon. Magandang araw, Eid. Welcome to the program.
Good morning po. My due respect to my mentor. Mentor namin sa peace process, si Father Mercado. Siya ang
mamaya-
nagturo sa amin. Yes.
Mamaya natin
Noong
gigisahin yan,
nag-umpisa
mamaya.
tayo
Sige.
sa peace process. Yes. He's the one responsible kung bakit natatag kami noon sa pag-umpisa in 1997, to be exact. Yes, yes.
Okay.
And to Ma'am Rosales and Sir, and
Father Jonathan.
yes, yes. Sa mga classes in Maguindanao, sa totoo lang, hindi tayo namamangha, hindi tayo nagugulat. Especially so that in that particular area, ang target ano doon eh. Almost alam ng community na si Basit and a certain foreigner was in the locality. If you recall, before na mag-meeting ang presidente sa Tokyo, nagkaroon din ng operation ang army in nearby areas, doon din sa Mamasapano, wherein tinatarget si Basit. At namatay ata yung mga asawa, ilang tao na biktima. Hindi lang kasi ata na masyadong
Nabigyan ng,
yes. So,
coverage.
we are expecting actually na may mangyayari dyan because there is really a presence of third party criminal element na hindi po na-treat in accordance with the peace process. Because under the peace process, hindi po nagkulang yung dalawang panig. Meron pong existing mechanism to address third-party group, criminal elements operating in the area. Kung paano nagkulang o bakit nagkulang, siguro dapat maimbestigahan. And for that matter, yung pong Bangsamoro Transformation Council, which I represent, sumusuporta po doon sa layunin na magkaroon ng independent investigative body. Yung posisyon ng AGPU, ganon din. Para makita yung katotohanan sapagkat ang sa tingin ng nakakarami parang merong pang malalim na dahilan kung bakit nangyari itong insidente nito sa Mamasapan.
Okay. Gaano kalalim yung malalim na binabanggit ninyo, Ginoong Kabalu?
Well, we can only speculate right now. But knowing for the fact that marami pong mga international body, third party involved dito sa peace process na ito, siguro palalimin natin yung pagtingin sa pangyayari. Sapagkat yung hinahanap naman Malaysian terror, ika nga. Yun yung claim, Malaysian terror. And so, that being the situation, look at the peace process being brokered by Malaysia.
Mhm.
Kaya nga nag-speculate tayo sapagkat hindi pa po lumalabas yung tinatawag nilang investigation na
Opo.
iko-conduct.
Gaano kahalaga ang magiging pananaw ng International Monitoring Team sa naganap ngayon sa Mamasapano?
Well, it's part of their responsibility. Under the terms and reference, kabahagi po ng kanyang responsibility, yung International Monitoring Team. But we are referring to an independent fact-finding committee or investigative body para titingin dito. Sapagkat sa tingin namin, malalim nga kung bakit nagkaganito. And we cannot just make a conclusive statement without this necessary investigation.
Okay. Pero knowing the characters, the personalities sa MILF, bakit daw nagkaganon na meron kang ceasefire pero pinutukan mo at mukhang close range ang tama ng mga SAF?
Well, ito nga ang sabi ko, merong existing mechanism diyan, yung AJAG, tinatawag, yung Ad Hoc Joint Action Group. Ang title ng agreement is the isolation and interdiction of criminal elements or third-party groups operating in Mindanao. Under that agreement, ang MILF po ay obliged. They are obliged because they have the commitment to report to the government through the AJAG yung presensya ng third-party group or criminal elements found within their area of operation. And then, may proseso doon. Pag ma-identify na meron pong ganong grupo, the MILF has the option. First option is to conduct the operation and the result of which will be reported to the government through the AJAG. Second option is, if they cannot do that, they can invite their counterpart in the government and conduct a joint operation to pin down that criminal element. Pag hindi po naman pwede yun, and then the MILF just submit a detailed report of that particular group and then submit to the government so that the government can undertake the necessary operation. Yung proseso po yun. Ang tanong ngayon, nasunod ba yun? Mayroon bang nangyari sa mga proseso na yun?
Ayun, tatanong natin sa Bulaklak. Okay.
Thank you.
Father Jun, you were part of the MNLF negotiations. You were part ng pagbuo nitong kasunduan sa MILF. Ano nangyari? What happened? Very briefly, Father.
Palagay ko, lahat tayo ay naghahanap kung anong tunay na nangyari sapagkat napakaraming version no? Merong version ng pamahalaan, merong version ng MILF, merong version din yung mga, sabihin natin, interested parties. At ngayon nagtatatag sila ng kanilang sariling board of inquiry. I will begin lang muna, Number one is that itong nangyari sa Mama Sapano, affects palagay ko, hindi lamang yung SAP o MILF, but affects us all. As a matter of fact, siguro it affects siguro yung dalawang bagay na napakahalaga, yung peace process, and second, it affects also the passage of the proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law. Plus number 3 siguro, it affects also the presidency. No, siguro yun ang unahin natin, presidency of Pinoy. Bakit? Sapagkat if we are not able to bring closure, pag walang closure dito, if we don't get real facts and real truth about what happened, ang magiging casualty nito ay the presidency of President Aquino, the peace process, as well as the passage of the Bangsamoro Basic Law. It is for this matter that I keep on insisting that there should be an independent, beyond any question, na magkukompose nito upang we can go really to the truth of what happened. Number one, kasi hindi ito, very emotional Very emotional yung issue. Very volatile. At you have several versions. And unless, ang talagang remedy for this will be real truth. Kasi if you can go down to the truth, people will be governed by that volatility, that passion, that emotion. Kaya nga, the President, by rejecting the Truth Commission proposed by the Senate and the House, tantamount na what are we trying to do? Kasi ang allegation, isa sa allegation, he's directly involved in the operation.
That's the allegation.
And then the second na allegation, it is not a stop operation, by the way, just to correct the whole thing. I got the news by Sunday, including the casualties, no? Na more accurate than the one published in the newspaper Monday following. A direct call from the ground, no? Na I received it around 6 o'clock, 37 wounded, stop, and then 12 more in the river, na still counting, and that will be around 6 o'clock. So akala ko na, grabe, it is an operation of CIDG. Ang SAP nagbigay lang ng support to CIDG. Remember, they are going there to arrest Marwan and Basit. So this is a CIDG operation.
But why is it
But
that
they
CIDG has been silent in all this?
Precisely, no mention of the CID. And the SAP simply provided the support in order to serve such operations. And then ngayon lumabas lately, 3 days ago lumabas, there are actually 2 scenes of the battle. One in Pinsadawan and the other one in Tukalinipao. The one in Pinsadawan was very successful with about only 7 casualties. At doon nila nakuha yung alleged Marwan. Alleged, kasi with Father Jonathan saying yung nakatali, magsasaka. Pero ang government basis ng picture, that is Marwan. Kaya nga, iba yung government version, iba yung ibang version on the ground. And then, after that, nag-enter sa fray kasi yung yung 105 And that's the time na nag-withdraw sa yung SAP. The SAP went to Kalinapao. At doon nagkaroon ng labanan for 10 hours ang 105 and then tong SAP. Ang point pa nga, by 12, buhay pa sila lahat 12 ng Sunday. But wala nga coordination, wala na silang mga bala Kaya nga, you need really real fact-finding and independent. Kasi ang allegation ngayon, they were slaughtered. Wala na silang mga bala. Buhay pa sila by 12. But no military coordination. Tumawag sila for the helicopter assistance. No helicopter. The mechanized brigade ng Armed Forces of the Philippines is based in Sharif Agwak, which is only 15 kilometers away from the scene. 15 kilometers and fully mechanized. And if you will be there in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, wala naman trapiko doon. And then the next pang battalion is only about 5 kilometers away. And then of course the 6th Infantry Division is about 30 kilometers away.
Okay.
So meaning to say is that ganito yung mga walang ano ha, kaya nga very very explosive. Number one, who authorized the operation really? Number two, is the President really monitoring the operation in Zamboanga in real time? With the number three, na important, why there's no coordination with the Armed Forces of the Philippines on the ground? And number four is that yung coordination ng sa AJAC na sinasabi ng kaibigan kong si Ed, ano, na meron mang existing protocol. Kung police lang yan, di okay. Kung kahit wala, naka-engage kasi yung MILF, no? Hindi lang yung mga Basit and Marwan. And number which is more explosive, especially to the Manila Nationalist Group, ay yung involvement ng US Special Forces.
Meron ba?
Pinablish ko nga sa social media yung helicopter tsaka yung active involvement ng US Forces. No? At least sabi nila, they were called para to evacuate the bodies. But since when na ginawa ng US yun na merong helicopter na silang pinadala at yung active na nagbubuhat, hindi sila nagbubuhat ng mga patay.
Saan galing yung helicopters?
They're getting, the helicopter yung Evergreen that is being used by the visiting forces, na special forces to go to all the different islands to ferret all the supplies. They went to the place. This never happened from 1946 to the present.
Maybe they were just being humanitarian.
Yung nga sinasabi on humanitarian, they were called. But that never happened. Ang kayang allegation sa ground, allegation lahat. Kaya nga we need AJAG, we need really a truth commission, is there really a U.S. special force that was killed and wounded, and that's why it necessitated the immediate evacuation of these people in order to hide them from the general public. Ito yung malakas na alingaw-ngaw no? Direct involvement of the US, they provided the intelligence definitely sa Marwan and Basit. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Philippine, with due respect to the Philippine intelligence, wala naman talaga silang money, know-how, na intelligence network to track down Marwan and Basit.
Okay.
So, gano'n ho. Kaya yun ang napakalakas na yung fifth na involvement ng US. And the last one, nandun ho yung mga pictures, mga videos all over sa social media. Yung videos coming from different direction also. I think meron coming from the MILF, yung actual nagbabari lang po, meron akong video noon no? Merong video sabihin natin after, yung galing na ho siguro yung sa SAP, para kunan ng picture lahat, Meron pa another video, they're all in the social media.
Okay.
So, ang point ko lang doon is that unless we ascertain the real facts, talagang emotion and volatility, and we all be casualties. And in itong situation na ito, the real remedy will be facts, truth. At the President allegedly involved, so walang maniniwala doon sa Board of Inquiry niya, wala rin maniniwala doon sa Board of Inquiry ng MI. At so because of that, hindi ho natin masasabi yun if we just let these two board inquiries to do their job.
All right. Thank you very much, Father Jun. We have Becky Lozada, National Coordinator ng Coalition for the International Criminal Court. What do you have to say about what happened?
Well, following dun sa sinabi ng mga kasama ko dito, malakas na yung panawagan para sa katarungan. Kami po, naniniwala kami na dapat ang panawagan na to, habang tayo ay nagmumorn, hindi dapat tayo umabot dun sa sinasabi nilang kalimutan na ang peace talks. In fact, the opposite. Kailangan nating gawin ang katarungan para ituloy-tuloy ang peace talks. Ngayon po, dediretsuhin ko na doon sa huling issue na pinag-uusapan. With all due respect to the Board of Inquiry being formed by the government and the investigation formed by the MILF, we believe we need more independent, non-partisan, and credible investigation. And we think, as a member of the Rome Statute, as a state party to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, that there is an option open to the government to refer the case to the International Criminal Court. In this way, we can really have integrity in the investigation that everyone can believe. Because the International Criminal Court is not going to carry the interest of the government or the MILF. They will carry foremost the interest of the community. Kasi hindi natin pinag-uusapan dito, pero ang daming na-displace, 1,000. Hanggang ngayon may mga babae at mga bata na hindi makauwi dun sa kanilang mga lugar. So libang pa dun sa possible war crimes dun sa nangyari sa Mama Sapano, ando dun po yung mga ibang issues pa relating to international humanitarian law or the rules of armed conflict that we have to look at. And if we look at that, and if government and MILF can face that squarely, I think we can have justice for victims, and we can proceed with an open heart to a peace process.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairperson Eta, binabanggit, meron ka dyang government forces, meron din po namang MILF. Pero anong tingin ng Commission on Human Rights doon sa BIFF?
Well, yung BIFF is, as everybody knows, is a renegade of the MILF, no? Ako meron lang akong sasabihin sa media at sa lahat. I think that ang kakailanganin natin ngayon, sobriety, no? Sober tayo, and let us not fan the flames of emotion. Kasi if you do that, you will polarize the people, at saka marami rin namang utak pulbura dyan, at saka in earlier media exchanges na napakinggan ko, tama na yan, peace process na yan. Tama na yung BBL na yan. Wala na yan. Tapusin na natin yan. Walang kwenta naman yung mga yan. Di naman credible. Pagka ganun ang attitude natin, talagang walang mangyayari. But let us just remember that a few years ago, not too recent, I mean not too distant, hundreds of thousands of evacuees were stranded in evacuation centers because of the war, internal armed conflict that was going on during the martial law period. And that was the time na lumala ng lumala yung tinatawag nating IDPs, internally displaced persons, at saka yung mga yung gulo, at saka destruction of the environment, natural resources, and so on. That contributed much to the impoverished situation that we are trying to overcome right now. So, ang tanong dito, gusto ba nating bumalik doon sa posisyon na yon na gera na lamang ng gera? So, I support the point that the CHR thinks that dapat lang the BBL can be discussed. Let us discuss the BBL. But in sobriety, tapos intelligently. But the BBL symbolizes the basis for a peace process, the legal basis for a kasunduan, an agreement on which we can now start to develop our internal economy, develop our peace program, develop the, yung well-being of the Filipinos. As I said a while ago, ang gutom, tumatagos yan. Maging magsasaka ka, Kristiyano ka, Muslim ka, sundalo ka, pulis ka, MILF ka, basta tumatagos yung gutom, ganun dapat yung sana pagharap natin sa sitwasyon. So, just one point, unang-una, sumuporta tayo doon sa intelligent at mapayapang pag-uusap para makita natin ang katotohanan sa pamamagitan ng isang independent investigation process. Yeah.
Chair, how do you look at what's going on in social media? May mga gory pictures, may video.
That actually, pinadala nga yan. That I find is unfortunate in a way, no? Because pinadala yan ng all sectors. Narinig ko yan pinadala yan, no? Now, okay lamang ang magpadala ng katotohanan. Gusto natin ng katotohanan. Pero pag ang impact nito, nagiging napaka-emotional ng mga tao, dapat i-regulate din natin. Sa akin, importante na ilabas yung katotohanan. In the necrological services, brutal talaga kasi yung mga coffins na pinuntahan ko tsaka yung mga pamilya, uniforms na lang ang nakalagay doon kasi sealed, kasi brutal talaga no? So, yun dapat ipaalam yan at dapat makita natin ito. Yan.
Father Jonathan, yung accounts na nakarating po sa inyo sa impila ng radyo, were that really, sabihin natin na halos hindi mo mababanggit sa radyo ang larawan ng mga biktima?
Oo, mahirap kasi nga magkakaroon ng galit magkakaroon ng ano. But we are trying to, sinasabi sa mga listeners namin sa radio, there are no real winners in this war, on any war. But there are losers and many of them don't even have anything to do with the fighting. Alam mo, dumating si Pope, ang mensahe niya, pagmamahal sa mahihirap. Sa Tacloban, di ba? Sana ganun din yung maging mensahe, patuloy na mensahe, na ang apektado dito hindi lang itong mga pulis, mga kanilang mga pamilya, marami din maapektuhan kung sakaling magkakaroon ng tinatawag nilang all-out war, yung mga civilian. I think ngayon ang panahon ng alam natin lahat tayo, nagdadalamhati, nagkagalit, upset of what happened to our beloved fallen 44. Now is the right time not to make hasty decisions and conclusions out of our emotions. The worst that we can do is let our emotions control our decisions and then regret it in the end. Now is the time for us to continue to push for justice and accountability. Justice, hindi siya revenge, is justice and accountability. For the media, I'm appealing for my fellow colleagues. You know, as journalists, our first loyalty is to the public and the citizen. We must strive to put the public interest and truth above our own self-interest or assumptions, even sometimes above our scoops and business. Minsan nakakaproblema dyan scoop, unahan, kasi may rating sa dyaryo, sa telebisyon.
Yun daw ang dahilan, kaya namatay yung hostages sa Luneta noong 2010.
Yeah.
Ratings
And lastly, we continue to stand for peace and support the peace process and for our Congress to stay on course. Inshallah.
Okay. Father Jun, nakita ko yung mga postings mo Para nag-withdraw ka ng support kay Presidente Aquino. What has President Aquino got to do with what happened?
Ang allegation nga strong, number one, na nagpunta siya sa Zamboanga, allegation lang to nagpunta sa Zamboanga precisely for this operation, not for the bombing in Zamboanga that occurred day before, and with only 2 casualties. No reason for him to go to Zamboanga. We cannot explain ang kanyang presence in Zamboanga. Kaya yung mga allegation, kasi more than ever, I need the Truth Commission. And you cannot do the board of inquiry, hindi mo pwede imbestigahan ang boss mo, no? Tsaka sila Purisima. That's why you need an independent. Pero mag-isip sila ng government BOI, nobody will believe it. You just spend a lot of money because directly involved ang presidente.
So pwede na yung sabi ni Becky na ICC.
Hindi, palagay ko mas okay yung sa Truth Commission without involving the foreign pen. No? Meron tayong mga people with probity. Noong sa Senate na pinag-uusapan yung ating mga former Chief Justices composing it, no? Na beyond probity. You don't need to involve pa international kasi palagi ni-involve din natin ang international Iba, nung panahon ni President Ramos, I know, for that matter, no involvement of international because we are capable naman, we are ready, no? There are men and women with probity beyond ang kanilang question, ang kanilang integrity that can compose it. But anyway, yun din lang yung allegation ng involvement ng presidente. Second, tao mo to no? Yun lang absence niya. Sa mga tao, ang naka-aggravate yung absence niya sa arrival, no? At napunta doon sa Mitsubishi sa kotse. Sapagkat there are people who attended both occasions. So there's no reason na you cannot attend both. Especially if you're the President of the Republic, nasa command mo yung mga helicopter. Yung si President Ramos was there and was also on time doon sa Mitsubishi, including the Vice President. So, you cannot explain. Second, nung necrological service, late pa yun. No, absent siya nung day before, sa arrival. Nung sa actual necrological, late pa rin siya. Everybody was waiting for him. Third, yung kanyang statement ang ano natin, grab the horn. Yung bull by the horn. Hindi ka umiiwas. Yung kanyang necrological service, 50% about his father and his own misery na commiserated para pare-pareho tayong biktima. You address the real issues, ano? Hindi ko man sinasabi, ako I support the whole peace process and I support also the BBL. But we cannot go forward with all this confusion. Yan ang magiging insensitivity. Ang effect niyan demanding for continuity and support without addressing the concrete issue, tantamount to lack of sensitivity. Kaya more than ever, we need truth because justice will be based on truth. Peace will be based on truth. And even our congressmen and our senators will only listen to the truth rather than the emotion. And the remedy for this emotion is the truth. Kaya nga sabi ko, we have to find the truth. Not from government or from the MI.
Okay, thank you, Father Jun. Madam Eta, let me be Pontius Pilate. But what is truth?
Yeah, well, teka muna. Ikumpleto lamang natin. Tama naman yung sinasabi ni Father Jun, no? Pero ikumpleto mo. Kasi after all was said and done, nakuha ko yun sa media rin Yung ABS-CBN yung una ko nabasa, napanood, no? Pagkatapos, nabasa ko sa mga media na he spent 12 hours from 12 o'clock noon to 12 midnight nung Sabado, hindi mo na binanggit. Kanya nga, yun. So, ibig sabihin, pag nagpapaliwanag tayo, ibigay natin yung total picture. So, I guess, he may have realized na, yun, yung kung ano man yung pagkukulang. So, he spent more time talking to them privately. And then, I understand that that's when they started finding out magkano ba yung dapat ibigay per family, no? So, yun yung complete picture para makuha natin yung katotohanan. And as I said, we have to be exhaustive. Now, what is the truth? Tinanong mo. The truth is really very elusive, but the truth is, it's a process of arriving at making it exhaustive and comprehensive as possible para makita natin kung ano nga ba yung katotohanan. Yun, no stone left unturned, but at the same time, as pointed out by Father Domingo, I'm surrounded by priests.
Pareho pang oblates yan.
Pareho pang oblates. But as pointed out by him, it's important for us to be as, yung hindi emotional, so that we do not fan the flames of, sensationalism, tapos nagagalit na tayo. We don't fan the flames of hatred and etc. Ang importante, yung truth should be done intelligently with sobriety para makuha natin exhaustively. Because the truth is the basis for the justice that you seek. Yan lang.
Thank you. This may be classified, pero nung nasa MILF ka, gaano karami armas doon sa area? Yung gaano karami yung armas?
But, nadagdagan pa siguro ngayon. yes. If there are 100,000 before, siguro baka times 2 na ngayon.
Ganon.
Yes. That is the reality.
We're talking here of Armalites.
Yes, of course. And kung ano yung meron dito sa siguro meron din doon
Ganon.
Because arms can be...
Wala na kayong kanyon, ano?
wala lang sila.
Wala kanyon.
So, ganito, sa harap nito siguro, let us accept the reality na itong produkto ng peace process, maybe kulang pa rin. Kaya nangyayari ito. Maybe it's an eye-opener na kailangan siguro magbuklod-buklod pa rin at hihimay-himay natin itong mga pangyari na ito. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Baka kulang pa nga. It will not really answer in totality the problem dito sa, particularly in Mindanao. So that there is a need to improve, more improvement, ika nga, because there is always a room for improvement. And siguro ito, pagkakataon ito, para mahimay-himay natin, ma-examine natin. Yung bang sinasabi nilang inclusive policy, is that really ika nga, taking place or ina-apply ba yan sa ground or everywhere? So kailangan natin mahimay-himay ito. Sapagkat ito, magkukumple ng other sector, if they will not be involved and ika nga, meron silang rules sa isang bagay na napakahalaga. So after natin ito, ma-address itong problema nang wala nang pagbubuhis ng buhay, wala nang dugong dadanag, wala nang property na madadamage. And so, all of us will be happy. Yung mga text na circulating in Mindanao na mag-ingat ang Kristiyano, papatayin ng MILF, paamusin sa kasal, that will not help anything. Dito naman sa may Metro Manila, pag nakahijab ang babae, magsakay ka ng taxi, iiwanan ka ng taxi. Mag-apply ka ng mga apartment, hindi ka pa tatanggapin because you are a Muslim. So, these are all, negative event that had nothing to do with our quest for meaningful peace and development in this country.
Thank you, Eid. Mga kaibigan, we'll open the floor to our friends from the media. Let's start with... yes, please.
Tracy Cabrera po. Somehow, we know that history gives us lessons. Diba? We can learn from it. Somehow, the Mama Sapano massacre, in quotation marks, reminds me of the decimation of the 12th Legion, Victrix Legion, under Marcus Gaius Crassus. He was decimated by the a rebel army of slaves under Spartacus. After that, ang ginawa niyang Roman Senate, they retaliated immediately and defeated Spartacus. Tapos yung problema and peace again. Now, mula nung namatay yung mga 44, walang reaction from the president. He seems to be business as usual. So I'd like to ask former MLF spokesman Eid Kabalu, if you were president, what would you do? Knowing the enemy is getting ahead.
If you were president, what would you do? If the MILF scored something, no? Sige nga.
Unang-una siguro, mangibabaw pa rin yung pagnanasa natin na we shall be able to address the problem through peaceful means. Unang-una yan. But as a president, commander-in-chief, nasa iyo lahat ang option. You can do either way, push through with the peace process and let the MILF assume the responsibility as soon as all these issues have been settled down. Or you can now take the action, launch the operation, but specific doon sa target lang. And that is within the power of the President.
Okay, now let me ask you, Ed. Kung ikaw ang chairman ng MILF, would you adhere to the request of Senate President Drilon to surrender those responsible, including their weapons?
Yung pag-agree ng chairman ng MILF is different of what is the actual situation on the ground. Baka mapahiya lang, with all due respect, this group, I am referring, my mentor knows very well, yung 105 na yan, pati yung 118, has been the problem in the ground. Dito makikita yung mga hard-headed na tao, ito rin yung the fighting gist among the best command in Mindanao, itong 105 na ito. And then, na-slice lamang yan. Nung simiperate si Kato, nagkaroon ng 118 best command. But they basically come from 105 best command. Ito pong mga mixed group dyan, and then yung BIAF and other groups, I have been saying time and time again, magkakamag-anak yan sila. Pagdating ng common enemy, they will fight together, one another, together against foreseen enemy.
Really? So magkakamag-anak yan. So posible rin na MILF by day, BIFF by at night.
Possible.
All right. Father Jun.
I'll just add to my good friend Eid Kabalu being from the place. Actually, I know the place very well because I still go there very often. Because that I monitor the road construction from Pagatin to Rajabuayan. So I go there very often. I know the whole place. I can go name all the barangays there right now. My point only here is number one, is that hindi pwedeng maging business as usual. Ito kung meron ka comparison ng 44 ang actually ang MILF investigation 64, ano? Government is 44. That means even by number I will go for MILF kasi kinount siguro na rin Masa River tsaka yung mga CIDG. That alone na number, you have discrepancy between MI and Philippine government. Ang government stop counting at 44. Para ba yung sa Tacloban na you stop counting at 2,000, don't go beyond?
Hindi, naka 7,000 naman. Naka 7,000.
Nga, naka 7,000. But this is the typical guy. Sabi ko, walang maniniwala sa kanang bio. Just the total wala no? But hindi pwede maging business as usual, sabi natin. But number one, if you are the president, at least, the most that you can do, kasi ito na hindi not touching on the peace process, not touching on humanitarian ground. Klarong-klaro naman yung slaughter yung mga mutilations. Even in Islam, that is not allowed. So the MILF officially does not allow that. International law does not allow the mutilations of bodies. Ang allegation, they were binaril na sa ulo. Yung 16 coffin na hindi pwedeng buksan, talagang gory ang kanyang talagang revolting. My point only, ito lang pwede mo nang posisyonan na hindi ka magpuposisyon sa peace process, hindi ka magpuposisyon but on humanitarian ground. Second, pwede ka magposisyon, isuli mo lang yung mga personal effects ng mga taong nakabrief na, wala yung mga cellphone nila, wala yung mga This is also international humanitarian. Pero walang business as usual. May walang even mention. Kaya ako nag-withdraw ng support ko sa presidente. Not even mention of mga personal effects. Pwede diyang i-demand sa MILF, return all those personal effects. So, return. Number 3, yung mga weapons, M4 yung bagong ginamit ng mga staff This is the short na M16 provided by the US of sa armed forces. Return all the weapons. Hindi ka pa nga nagtotok ng peace process. And then, last, ako'y magtatatag talaga ng independent inquiry. The only comparison to this massacre is the Jabida massacre to the Muslim. Itong SAP massacre is to the Christian mga SAP. So hindi pwede maging business as usual. Jabida triggered the whole MNLF. So ito can trigger anything unless we go down to the truth. Ngayon ang discourse on the ground talagang nag-separate talaga yung Muslim discourse and Christian discourse, which is very tragic,
Okay.
Na nahahati ako nga, madalas ako ma-blame because I'm very close to the MNLF and the MILF. Ang sinasabi, ikaw Father, parang support, yun naman nangyari. So my point only is that totally on the ground mismo in the communities, na very volatile sapagkat nag-separate yung discourse, the Christian discourse and the Muslim discourse.
Okay.
So that's why it is not business as usual. And many people in Manila, especially the policymakers, are treating this as business as usual under the guise of supporting BBL and the peace process. Wala nga yun no? Yun lang on the humanitarian and international ground, pwede mo nang mag-action.
All right. Thank you. Well said. Ladies first. Yes, madam, please identify yourself for the information of our friends in the panel. Teka, sandali po, laksan natin ng konti yung mikropono. Pakisuyo lang.
Sol Vancy po, Los Angeles Times at saka Manila Bulletin. Kanina po sa radyo, may isang political analyst na in-interview at ang sabi niya, kung may kahihiyan si Mar Rojas at paninindigan, dapat ay mag-resign siya. Dahil, sabi ni Professor Carlos, obviously, kung totoo nga that he was kept out of the loop, silang dalawa ni Espina, may ibang nagpupul nung strings. At sila echapuera, parang pinindeho, ganun. Meron ding mga talagang strictly politics ang analysis na if Mar Rojas, this is the time for Mar Rojas to dissociate himself from the current administration. Dahil he behaved very well, he was there all the time, he never said anything bad, but he was there, he was around. At yung meeting niya kahapon sa mga Marines, which was very emotional.
Sa SAF.
Ay, Marines, sorry, sa SAF, kasi parehong uniforme. sa SAF was very emotional. More emotion, they showed more emotion, the men and women, than they did when the president was around. So ano ba sa tingin ninyo?
So, kanino nakadirect yung tanong?
Kahit kaninong gustong mag
Kahit
reply.
kanino sa kanila.
Dapat ba na magkaroon naman ng pride si Mar Rojas at magsalita ng something or tuluyang mag-quit kung pinupuntirya niya ang presidency next year? This is the time to do it.
Okay. Paano kaya yun? Would you care to react?
Government, at saka independent government magsalita. Okay.
I think wala sa atin ang dapat magsabi kay Mar Rojas kung ano yung dapat niyang gagawin. I think that's up to him, and whatever decision he makes, we should respect. If Secretary Mar Rojas decides not to resign, despite the fact that there's others' opinion that he was snubbed. No, he was snubbed, and he was not allowed to know exactly what this was, which was in violation of his authority as the head of the DILG. But he still continues, and he does not resign. We must respect that. I think we should respect that, because when you're in government, pag nandun ka na sa pwestong yon, iba yung perspective din na nakikita nila. Maybe, I can only guess, maybe the way all of them are thinking right now, I'm not part of them because I don't belong to the cabinet in that sense, but maybe what is most important right now is unity, to draw unity of government and the people, media, everybody, and address what I had said must be addressed. And one is, in the immediate, an independent investigation, whatever form it may be, whether it's a truth commission, whether you start with a board of inquiry but expands to other things. But the point is, the process must have integrity in getting at the truth. That is immediate. Number two, in the larger picture, we must say that what we are after is precisely the very basis for why you have your BBL, which is to arrive at a legal agreement that says peace on the ground, there's ceasefire, because you have to have that kind of basis in order to be able to rebuild the nation and bring about the recovery that is needed for a long-term basis of fulfillment. No, yun.
Okay. From the other OMI, Father Jonathan, and how would you react to the question from Sol Vancy?
No comment.
Ganun. Bakit?
Regarding Mar Rojas, being media, I don't usually speculate. No, I mean,
Okay.
kay ETA, commissioner niya, meron siyang sariling
Pananaw.
decision, pananaw. Bahala na. It's up
Okay.
to him. Especially if he's running for presidency, what is the right way for him to do right now?
All right.
Sa ganitong situation.
Yeah. From the other OMI, Father Jun.
Una, siguro ilatag ko ho yung parameter. Rojas is a personal friend of mine, si Mar, no? So that means I will respect the decision of Mar personally, and I will understand his position. But second, also, definitely, no position of position, withdrawal or resignation, it will affect his personality, his future, and his whatever he plans for 2016. It will drastically will have impact sa kanyang future, hindi lang present ngayon sa government, pati yung kanyang future sa 2016. Because the people will decide, Mar Rojas will judge Mar Rojas now at the moment from on the basis of his decision vis-a-vis this massacre. So if he does not, meron ho yung impact. If he does, meron din yung impact. Kaya sabi ko sa kanya, it will shape your present and your future. But whatever you decide, I will remain your friend.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, I have a comment also. So, may mga nagtitik din dyan, napakarami pong text circulating. Baka hindi lang si Marrojas ang mag-resign, baka ang gobyerno na ito ang mag-resign na. Because there is a need to regime, sabi nila, regime change. And ito nga yung text na nag-circulate.
Uh-huh.
Yun
Do you
yung
believe in
posisyon
what
ng-
the text says?
Ah?
Do you believe in what the text message says?
Yes, it had to be
the government
validated
should
and
resign?
revalidated and find out what is truth.
Okay.
Yes, and what is the cry of the time now?
Okay.
Okay.
Mula po sa ating kaibigan si Becky
I
Lozada.
don't think he will listen to me, but I think he has many options. So resignation is just one. Pero he could also back the cry for independent, non-partisan, credible investigation, and probably that will redeem his office.
Okay. Sol, is it also possible kaya nagalit si masama loob ni Marrojas yung katagang dark, he was kept in the dark? Yes. No? Or which would be more acceptable? He's out of the loop or kept in the dark. You know, pag dark kasi iba ang connotation. Yes, please.
To his credit, Secretary Rojas never said anything about masama ang loob or anything. So, stoic ang description ko sa kanyang posisyon of the past few days. Very commendable.
Okay. Asa si Estong? Magtatanong ka. Sige. Mauna muna to kaibigan natin.
Teddy Lachadores of Metro Daily. Ang tanong ko po kay Mr. Eid Kabalu, kailangan po bang brutal ang pagkamatay ng mga sundalo o PNP sa labanan? Pangalawang question ko po kay Commissioner Eta Rosales.
Chair Rosales.
Ano na po yung nangyari doon sa 2007 beheading of 11 Marines? Yun lang po.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ano yung unang question sa...
Yung unang tanong tungkol sa
Bakit daw ganun ka-brutal?
ganun ka-brutal yung pagkakapatay doon sa mga sundalo.
Doon sa Mama sa Pano. No, we are only dependent on yung mga video circulating. Wala atang pukutan ng ulo doon sa Mama sa Pano. But there was I think mga personal properties, belongings were taken. Nag-borlis po yung mga sundalo. It's a very, very unfortunate na nangyari yun. Yung you are referring to Basilan, yung Albarca, sa Basilan. Medyo brutal po yun. But it turned out na doon sa investigation ng government sa MILF, it is not the responsibility of the MILF. Yung ata mga civilian, kasi ang ugali diyan sa Basilan, pagkatapos ng firefight, yung mga civilian parang umaani sila, nag-aani sila. They are harvesting. So ano yung makita nila doon, so, they are the one responsible doon sa pagmumugot ng ulo. Galit kasi yung mga civilian because they are always been the victim when there is a firefight.
Yeah. Okay. Chair Rosales, yung pangalawang tanong po doon sa mga beheading na naganap in 2007.
Oh, that was terrible, wasn't it? I remember having talked to the higher ups. And bakit nangyari yung nangyaring yon, no? Kasi they fell into the trap, no? Ibang usapin pa yung beheading because that is again desecrating, di ba? And again, on humanitarian purposes, kung na naman yon, violation yon. Pag namatay na, pag pinatay mo na, hindi mo na dapat i-mutilate yung katawan, no? Pero I remember, I think that was General Oban noon who was the chief of staff. Nang kinausap ko siya, what are we going to do about this and why did this happen? And I understand that it was during that time where the orientation of these people, nagmamamadali sila, hindi sila nagantay ng mga kasamahan nila, walang yung, dapat nagantayan sila, nauna sila, so they were actually caught, they were trapped in that thing, no? And I think that they were motivated by other things na I think that was the time na may ransom na pinag-uusapan and nag-uunahan doon sa ransom. Now, as to ano na ang nangyari doon sa investigation, kasi sila nag-investigate, I think we will still have to find out about it because they started keeping quiet about that.
O naitanong ko po kasi ngayon may investigasyon na naman na gagawin. Natabunan na po yung nakaraan. 2007 pa po yun. At isa pa po, pwede po mag-follow up dun sa question ko kanina, Mr. Eid Kabalu. Bakit po ba, pag ito yung kay Marwan, international terrorist ito, yung 2007 na nangyari, na pangyayari, si Father Rossi naman ang involved doon, ang biktima. Bakit po ganun? Yung pag may kidnapping at saka terrorist sa MILF na lugar nangyayari. Bakit po ganun? May ano po ba?
Okay. Sige, Eid. Maganda tanong yan.
Meron kasing problema sa Mindanao na malalim na problema. And so, kaya nga ina-address ng gobyerno sapagkat maaring ma-exploit ito. I mean, para bang very prone to be exploited ng iba't ibang grupo. So, hence there is a need really to address the problem. And this is, I think the government is on the right direction in addressing the problem. Para mawala po yan, sapagkat the moment ma-address natin yung problema, wala na pong room yung mga masasamang grupo, lalong-lalo na pag na-implement natin maigi yung mga napipirma na agreement. Ito nga yung problema eh. Ang gobyerno, pirma ng agreement. Andi diyan yung 1996, Tripoli Agreement, 1996 Final Peace Agreement. Ito man, meron naman tayong agreement, BBL, CAB, ang tawag nila. Pero they are talking the same problem, the same area, the same people, pareho lang. Yet, ito nga, nakikita nga na parang wala rin katuturan.
So the difference is the same.
Precisely. Melo. So, I mean, paikot-ikot lang tayo.
Okay.
There is no really sincerity in addressing this problem so that pinagpalit lamang yung mga taong nag-handle sa problema. But they are pursuing the same theory. Ilang. Para kung sa bola, dribble lang.
Okay.
Dribble lang. Kahit nandyan na yung goal, hindi mo rin isi-shoot.
Pero dun yata sa dribble may kumikita.
Of course.
Oh.
Well, sabi ni Father, my mentor is, of course,
Meron daw, okay.
meron yan.
Okay,
So, this is a very, very unfortunate. Sana po, meron na po tayong political will. And I believe, hanggat hindi tayo, until we remain in this kind of system, I'm referring to the presidential system of government, hindi natin ma-address itong problema na ito. Time now is come to shift from presidential to parliamentary, even federal system of government. And the solution is already built in that system. I believe.
Thank you.
Hindi na pala peace negotiations, business negotiations.
Ano?
Pakipateho yung mga, silent yung mga cellphone, ha?
Estong, magtatanong ka ba? Si Linggoy muna.
Magandang umaga po. Linggoy Alcuas ng Opinion. Ang tanong ko ay mas malawak. Kasi po, itong administrasyon ni Pinoy ay baka makilala sa kasaysayan na from massacre to massacre. Nagumpisa po sa Loretta hostage massacre at ngayon po, towards the end of his 6 years, a year and a half to go, meron naman Maguindanao massacre. Okay? Ngayon, no matter kung sino ang may kasalanan sa baba, siya po ang Pangulo at Commander-in-Chief. No? At mukhang merong character flaw ang ating manager, kaya hindi na ma-manage whether yung maliit-liit na isa lang yung kalaban sa Luneta o yung merong ilang base command, no? Without saying who is at fault. So, mukhang malaking problema natin. No?
So,
Baka kung i-address lang natin yung January 25 incident, magkaroon na naman ng another incident. So, ang problema natin ay yung ating manager-in-chief. So, anong mungkahin nyo o anong reaction nyo? Do you agree na may problema, may sira sa ulo yung ating manager, general manager?
Hindi. Let's not put it that way. Ibang perspective yun. May sira sa ulo, medyo iba yun. Siguro, baka may kakulangan.
Oh, may
Sa
kakulangan.
management skills.
Sa coordination.
Yun. Okay, okay. Sige. Let's start.
Askisin na po.
Yes, madam. Sige pa, sige pa.
Maraming imperfections talaga. Wala naman nating sinasabing perfect, and marami nga siyang problemang hinaharap at may mga pagkukulang din. So, that's the reality. That's the given. So what do you want? I mean, you're entitled to your own opinion, but what we are discussing, you're asking the question about management style or management. Well, may problem siya. But I would like to say that objectively, it's not just a question of massacre after massacre. That's why I say that when you do investigation, you have to be exhaustive, comprehensive, no stone left unturned. Now, when we're discussing things, and we say that the administration is from one massacre to another, medyo marami tayong inaalis. No? May malaking issue na nangyari dito, harapin natin ito. But it is not to say that na-massacre yung Loretta. In the first place, you have to define what you mean by massacre. There's a technical definition for that. But we're not gonna go into that. So, yun yung aking sagot doon sa opinion mo na it's from one massacre to another massacre. I don't agree with that. I think that there's a major problem that we're facing right now. Dapat harapin natin, seryoso ito. Pero I do not agree with the opinion that the administration is from one massacre to another because of a character flaw of the president. Yun, ganun lang.
Okay. Father Jun, bago tayo kay Father Jonathan.
Siguro katulad ni Mel, merong kabagalan at kahinaan. Siguro most probably is that talagang malaki ang demand sa chief executive, especially sa mga events like that, At pag malaki ang measurement din ng timbangan ng mga tao, kaya pag hindi ka umarte at hindi ka nag-decisive action, the people will be very harsh on the judgment. And this is the very reason I think why there is what we call a national outrage and rage. Nobody can deny na meron talagang galit. Ang galit naman okay lang, wag lang magpunta sa hatred. Kaya nga, talagang naturally mo, pag nakita po, pag narinig mo, at nakita mo walang action, talagang yung pag-action na walang kagat, walang traction. Talagang magagalit ang tao. Kaya hinahanap ng tao, hindi man talagang mag-bizarre ka o mag-suicide ka o magharakiri ka, but certain definite actions within the bounds of
But
law.
Father, you will
Wala
also agree with me that as of Monday night and Tuesday morning, ang trending sa social media, yung damit ni MJ sa Miss Universe at hindi yung naganap sa Maguindanao.
Pero from Sunday hanggang sa kanyang public discourse, 4 days. Why it will take 4 days for the President for such a big tragedy? Then pagdating nung kanyang discourse after the 4th day, una pala nag-discourse si Mar Rojas saka si Espina na they are not in the loop, they don't know what happened. If you interview anyone military on the ground, they don't know what happened. They know the numbers, but they don't know why it happened.
Okay.
So, ganong klase. Kaya nga, nag-aantay yung mga tao until na walang concrete action without violating anything, but doon lang sa principles ng law, you should be very decisive and determined.
Okay.
And the President is rather lacking.
Thank you very much. Father
Natanong na
Jonathan.
rin ako dyan I think I'm teaching kasi ng leadership sa MBA. Tinanong ako sa estudyante ko, Father, what do you think of
Pakilapit ka
Pinoy?
po sa mikropono.
Anong masasabi mo sa Presidente? Sabi ko, our President, that was 2013 yung after ng first term niya. Sabi ko, the President lacks compelling vision to rally a nation. Walang vision ng Presidente na para tayo marally so that this President can bring us as a nation to a place where never been before. Why? Micromanaging. Nagma-micromanage siya at wala Walang para sa akin, leadership is you have a compelling vision for the nation so that you can rally all sectors, even the partisan politics, but you're able to do that. And I think, sabi nga nung sa isang forum na our economy is growing. Andyan na yan. Sa 2016, whoever be the president, we will have a 6 to 7 growth. Andyan na yan. But if we will elect not only an honest, but a competent president, tataas daw ang ating economic growth by 8 to 10%. Ay, masabi ko kay Pinoy, aminin ko na, he is incompetent, but he's honest.
Okay. Thank you very much. Estong, mamaya na yung MILF perspective, dating MILF perspective, yes.
Incompetent pero honest, no? Well,
Teka muna, yung tanong mo, hindi yung komentaryo mo.
natawa ako. Hindi,
Pakilala ka muna.
I'm Ernie Reyes po sa Interaction.com ng TV5. Si Miss Eta Rosales, ano po yung gagawin ng CSR? Kasi, since you were appointed as CSR chair, very vocal po kayo dun sa mga ganitong usapin. Pero since Monday until now, wala pa kami nadidinig sa CSR. What are you going to do with the... Ano ba talaga yung massacre ba yun talaga? Anong technical term doon? Misencounter, massacre. Sa inyo muna, ma'am.
I don't know. I'm gonna wait for the investigation. Those are speculations. People make opinions. It's a massacre. It's a misencounter. Maraming opinions. Kaya ang sinasabi ko, let us be as objective as we can. Let's go to the truth, to the bottom of the problem. And it's not as if from Monday, walang ginagawa ang CHR. We've been at it quite some time already. We issued our statement a few days after that. We first studied what the score was, then we came out with a statement. And then we've been, anyway, I've said it already before, baka late kang dumating. No. I've said it already, na nagpunta na kami sa necrological services, may programa na kami na ginagawa as it is. Ang lagi kong sinasabi, let's be sober, and then lahat tayo, we have a right to be angry, pero pag-aralan natin. And everyone, discuss this matter with a bit of humility. Kasi sa totoo lang, we have not really been, this is a systemic, structural problem that we have been facing since time immemorial. So it's not even the fault of President Noynoy alone, although he committed a faux pas. And yung mabigat talaga yung nangyaring problema under his administration. So harapin natin yon, lahat tayo, harapin din niya yon, at unti-unti, tingnan natin kung paano nating uusad dito. Ang bottom line dito, para sa akin, yung mamamayang Pilipino, lalo na yung mga gutom, lalo na yung mga hirap. Sinabi ko na uli ito kanina. Kay Muslim ka, kay Kristiyano ka, kay sino ka pa man, marami ang nagugutom sa bayan natin. May nagagawa ang pamahalaan tungkol dito sa gutom. Yung bottom-up budgeting, if you wanna go into specifics, marami silang nagagawa dyan. Local government, may pondo yung mga yan. But maraming pag-uusapan in terms of the development na nagawa nila, ang anti-corruption drive nila. Pero mas malaki pa ang problema sapagkat ang problema nga systemic at structural. Hindi yan lang usapin ng isang presidente. So, yon.
Okay.
Kay Mr. Eid Kabalu, yung sinabi niyo kanina po sa Tripoli Agreement, meron tayong 1996, ngayon meron naman BBL. Sabi niyo kasi hindi na-address yung root, yung ugat ng problema. Ano po ba yung talagang problema sa Mindanao at paano natin ito lulutasin?
Thank you. Unang-una, siguro, yung sinasabi natin na inclusive policy shall be applied or observed in letter and spirit. Hindi lang yung salita lang, tapos hindi naman po tinutupad o ginagawa. So, kailangan natin yun sapagkat ito nga, yung mga projection, sabi nila, pagkatapos ng MLF, meron namang grupo na litaw. Andiyan na yung BIF. And so, sabi nga ni Congressman Rufus Rodriguez, at this point, kailangan lalabas na sila at mapasama na diyan sa usapan na yan. As to how the government will approach the problem, Sa palagay ko, it's their own initiative and prerogative. But kailangan po natin ma-involve yung different stakeholders ang tawag nila sa Mindanao. So that once and for all, ano man yung kalalabasan, final output nitong ating pagsisikap ay ika nga, mayroon pong consent, willful consent, ika nga, ang lahat ng sector. So yun yung ating nakikitang kulang sa ngayon. That is why other sectors are afraid. Sabi nila, pag na-aprobahan yan, yung mga lupa namin ay kukumpiskahin na. Those are misconception. Hindi naman po ganoon yung intention ng peace process na ito. I-address yung problema. By the way, yung issue ng territoriality, sapagkat ang sabi, bakit magpaalam yung armed forces or police authorities bago pumasok sa target kung saan nandoon yung MILF. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na pag-aari na ng MILF yung area. At saka, mind you, the MILF had already made a commitment as early as March 2010 na hindi na sila magpupursige ng independence. And they agree to address the problem within the parameter of the Constitution. And they officially accepted Filipino citizenship. So hindi na po issue yung territory na yan na sinasabi. So it's immaterial because ginagawa itong mga mechanism na yon sapagkat para masustain natin yung peace on the ground while talking peace, the environment is conducive for talking peace. Yun naman po, hindi po tama yung sinasabi nila na territory ng MILF hindi na pwede pasukin. That is outside of the question. We are doing this, itong mga mechanism na to, sapagkat gusto natin na makatulong doon sa pagnanasa na makita natin yung tunay na kapayapaan.
Sabi niyo po, kailangan kunin lahat ng opinion or mga posisyon ng mga stakeholders. During the 1996 MNLF government peace agreement, ginawa po ba yun?
Ito nga ang problema sapagkat yung agreement na yan ay magkatunggali ang opinion diyan, ang idea. Sabi ng MNLF, hindi implemented. Sabi ng gobyerno, fully implemented na daw. So, saan ka doon? Puro hindi nagsasabi. Ang gobyerno hindi nagsasabi ng totoo. Ang MILF hindi nagsasabi ng totoo. Ang MNLF hindi rin nagsasabi ng totoo. So, magulo tayo. Because out of that, we will be formulating a framework, a solution based on that misleading statement. So, hindi tayo makakarating sa magandang patutunguhan sapagkat sabihin lang natin yung isang bagay na meron tayong pakinabang, meron tayong interest. So, we will be going nowhere.
Okay.
Yung sa, doon sa BBL po ba, ano po, Mr. Eid Kabalu, ano yung masasabi niyo sa BBL? Tama ba siya or katulad din siya ng 1996 peace agreement or yung Tripoli agreement?
Yan, ikaw na. That's your own.
Yung sa BBL po, yung current BBL.
Tama raw ba yun?
Tama ba ito? Tama ba ito? Na-address ba yung problema ng BBL?
Dito sa BBL?
Yes.
Kaya nga, yung opening statement ko, kailangan ma-improve ito. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise, bagamat nagbuwis ang buhay ang mga ating mga pulis, mga sundalo, and even MILF elements, siguro blessing ito para makita natin na kulang yan. Marami pong kulang. I am very, very certain na kulang po yan. And so, we shall now improve it, do everything to improve it so that it can respond to the root cause of the problem.
So, can you cite some kung anong kulang?
Marami po. Unang-una, yung mga ibang stakeholders, wala po silang involvement diyan. Kaya nga takot sila sapagkat hindi nila alam yung nangyayari. Kahit na yung information, mind you, as early as napirmahan yung FAB, I talked to General Ordoyo. Sabi ko, sir, iba yung kampanya ng MILF, iba yung kampanya ng gobyerno. Bakit din natin pag-isayin yan? So that in the end, magre-rest back yan. Gobyerno ang makikinabang yan. Sabi nila, hindi daw papayag ang MILF. They'll be talking the same thing, the same, supposed to be they sing the same tune. Pero hindi, magkaiba po. Anong consequences? Ito, magkakaiba yung interpretation ng tao. May tao na may intellect na. He can absorb what the government and the MILF say. Merong hindi makaka-absorb because ando na yung element ng fraud or misleading.
Okay.
I don't know what you call it. But basta hindi tama po.
Kay Father Mercado. Sabi niyo po kanina, sir, Father, magbubuo kayo ng independent team or para to investigate? Am I right?
Independent probe, oo, na ang kanyang membership beyond, sabihin natin, ang question of integrity, tsaka sabihin natin na impartial siya. Sapagkat yung the probe ngayon, siyempre government yung isa, Board of Inquiry, at meron din probe yung MI, at meron probe din yung IMT, yung National Monitoring Team, at magpo-probe pa rin ang aking kaibigan si Chairman Rosales. Napakaraming probe. Ang importante ho ngayon to set the real facts straight. Kasi yun lang po remedy doon sa ating emotion tsaka sa anger. We will never move forward. We cannot move forward. Sinasabi ko kasi mga propaganda propaganda ng gobyerno, propaganda ng MI, and they begin believing their propaganda. Itong for peace na ho yan, narinig ko na ho in 1976 because I was in the Tripoli Agreement.
And that
In
is the
96
question I have.
In 96, I was also there in Jakarta. I occupied the position of head ng consultative ng ano. Ito ho ngayon, the same din. Ang point ko lang una, yung 1976, in agreement with the MNLF, wala pa yung MI noon, kaya joint ho yun. 96, in agreement with MNLF. Ito namang BBL is in agreement with MILF. Hindi ho ito sa entire Bangsamoro. Kaya yung mga nandito na, sustainable, enduring peace, ito ho talaga, we have to distinguish in facts and reality. Kasi ito is a peace only with the MILF. Hindi pa nga nagkakaroon ng completion, magkakaroon pa ng legislation. Kaya nga, unang-unang gagawin natin, separate yung facts tsaka yung reality, tsaka yung ating propaganda.
All right. Well said. Yes, madam. Would you care to add, please?
Well, I just wanted to speak also on the question of the leadership. Kasi ang issue po ng kapayapaan ay issue na dapat lahat tayo ay tumutugon. At maraming ginawa at iba't ibang sektor para umabot tayo kung saan ngayon pinag-uusapan yung kapayapaan. Yung nangyari tong Mama Sapano, kami po nag-iintay na doon sa bagong draft ng BBL. Kung tatanungin niyo kami kung ano yung, kasi ang Philippine Coalition for the International Criminal Court po ay kasama rin sa mga ibang network, yung isa, Women's Network. At we work hard with with congressmen to genderize the BBL, na masigurado nandun yung mga issue ng mga kababaihan. We also work with indigenous people, lalong-lalo na sa PCICC with Higa Ono na nasa Mindanao. At ang kanilang concern na ang BBL ay medyo general ang kanyang nakasulat tungkol sa indigenous people at protection nito. To give credit to this administration, we are now in these kinds of discussions where before there was none, correct? So there is very good initiatives for peace, yes. And also, I want to refer to yung question earlier about an earlier violation of international humanitarian law. The more recent for me is what happened also in Maguindanao, the issue of the electoral violence, Ampatuan, which happened before we enacted a law on international humanitarian law, which is Republic Act 9851. At that point that happened, we were talking in the coalition about this being possibly a crime against humanity because it was a systematic attack. Usually, international humanitarian law is about crimes committed in wartime, but crimes against humanity can be peacetime crimes like electoral violence if it is widespread and systematically done. So, to us, this issue we are dealing with now, it's important to have this independent probe and to look at all options possible for us. Because what Ampatuan showed us is we are still lacking because it is now in the courts. But as you all know, yung witnesses ng Ampatuan, 7 na yung pinatay o nawawala. So how does that speak about our justice system? So that is the reason we are now asking for us to open options for accountability.
Thank you very much. Father, Pahiram po na. Nagkataon lang pong kulang yung mikropono ngayon.
Tandaan po natin, yung peace process, hindi naman to. Kaya nga process is a being, no, gumagalaw na maaring, yun ang big picture, the peace process. I think yun din dapat mawala sa atin. Halimbawa, may gains naman ng ngayon peace process. Kahit nagkaroon ng insidente, may decommissioning na nangyayari. Sabihin, kung ang mga MILF fighters bibigay yung kanilang mga inventory of arms, isang malaking bagay na sa peace process kasi ito nga iniiwasan yung mga armas na nasa kanila. At may mapagawang pa sila armas. Isabihin yung usaping pangkapayapaan, isang proseso hindi masosolve ng BBL. Kasi yung BBL is only political settlement. Pero ang big picture yung peace process na sana ma-own ng mga Pilipino. Hindi pag nangyari ito, bawa ito, may mga text na kumakalat sa Mindanao.
Ano yung kumalat na text sa Mindanao ngayon?
Ito, diniscuss sa radyo. Kinaro naman. Sabi, Sir, Madam, take all the necessary precaution. Di magkumpiyansa sa tanan, sa lahat. Highways of whole Mindanao. Anytime mag-block ang mga MILF at magharas ng detachment of government facilities. Babae, bata, tigulang, matatanda yun. Lalaki ng mga Christian, patyon, kaya wala ng visa ang framework agreement of Bangsamoro. Share to all Christian friends, families, and relatives. Ang nakakalungkot, galing pata sa headquarters ng intelligence ng AFP.
Sabi
Pero
daw.
na-clarify na kanina sa radyo, nagsalita ng 6ID, hindi. Yung sasabi ni Father Jun na yung discourse, nagkakaroon ng discourse na di ba't mangyari among civilians, Christian, Muslim. Pero kami mga taga Mindanao, tahimik kami doon wala mang gera. Araw-araw kaming madaan sa Maguindanao, Christian, Muslim, Cotabato City, wala naman. Minsan ang discourse nangyayari sa national. Sila nagdidikta minsan ng discourse doon sa local sa
Now,
Mindanao.
let me ask you, Father, who stands to benefit from all this stupidity?
Kayo daw magtanong.
Dahil may nanggugulo may motivation yan.
Yes.
Okay? One question I got is, paano makakaparticipate ang mga kabataan sa discussion ng BBL? Share.
Napakahalaga nun. Ang mga kabataan dapat because they are the future of the nation, eka nga. Ako, nung nakikinig ako sa kanila, kay Ed at saka kay Father Jun, if may separate discourses, can we identify what these differences are? Can we discuss them there? Kasi one thing that I know, for instance, ang isa katutubo, kakaunti. Nagpunta ako sa Palimbang, yung mga MNLF base yun Tapos yung massacre doon na naganap, di ba? So sabi ko, dapat yung MNLF masama dito sa discourse na ito. Dapat masama sila. Si Nurmiswari, I don't know how you look at Nurmiswari, but dapat sinasama itong mga ito, dapat sinasama yung mga katutubo, dapat comprehensive yung kwan. That is one thing on a practical level na pwede natin gawin. Let us identify what are the differences. Because you, MILF, and you, government, dapat isa lang ang inyong kinakanta, yung katotohanan, para sa kapayapaan. No?
Okay, thank you. Father Jun, how can the youth take part in the discussion sa BBL?
Alam naman nating lahat ngayon nagsarado na tapos na yung public hearings conducted by the House tsaka conducted by the Senate. Ang Senate hindi po tapos kasi nagsuspend na kanilang hearing until we get the truth of this massacre. So ang point ko lang dito is that dapat talaga maging active participation ng mga kabataan. It is their future. Kaya lang natapos na yung public consultation sa mga different places. I attended most of them kaya I know na hindi rin well organized yung public hearings na yun Pero yung Senate is beginning wala na rin public hearing, lahat niya sa Senado na at saka House. Tapos na rin yung ang ngayon committee hearing na lang po. Kaya kung sabihin natin medyo kayo nahuli, but you can still submit position papers kung organize yung mga kabataan. Ang susunod doon namang kabanata niyan pag napasa na yung batas, there'll be a referendum naman po. So they can participate in the discussion of kung ma-legislate talaga yung BBL na yan, on the law. At sila rin yung may ultimate na meron silang to vote or yes or to vote no for the inclusion and exclusion in the proposed Bangsamoro new entity. Ang last naman siguro sabihin natin, sabihin ko lang kaya ho, mahirap po talaga. Ang government, they have their own rhetoric and propaganda that they believe also. Ang MI, ganun din ho, they believe in their own propaganda. Ganito lang naman yan eh. Nung narinig ko na ho lahat yung propaganda ng yan since 1976 eh. Marcos said na ito na ang katapusan ng gera, we have defined sustainable peace, the Tripoli Agreement, lahat naman talaga. Nandun pa ako, naglalaro sa kami lahat eh. Ganon din yung discourse ng 1996 na ito na yung talagang chance. Ito yung pangatlong ulit na ho sa BBL. Alam din mo natin na this discourse, wala yung mga big elephants in the room na talagang aalma. Everybody recognize the elephants that should be there are not there. The MNLF is not in the room. Nasabi nila, sila yung recognize ng OIC, dapat mag-continuity yung, may continuity. 1976, 1996, tsaka itong sabihin nating Kaab. Wala akong continuity, may break eh. Like this administration. This administration begins in 2010. No reference in the past. So itong kanyang peace agreement also, no reference in 1996 and no reference also in 1976. Na-recognize siya ng OIC in the last summit. Bakit walang even whereases? Ano? Normally magbebis ka ng whereases. Nung 76, whereases. Sabihin natin nung 96.
Baka nasa second syllable lang.
Hindi ho ang point ko lang ho is that this administration begins in sa kanyang election 2010. Parang everything starts from zero. But yung kanyang peace process starts from zero. But this is an old peace process. It continues. It will be beyond his administration. He wants this to complete it in 2016, which is not even a miracle. It cannot be even a miracle solved. This is a long history. So it will not be solved in 2016, but he wants to solve it. May kakulangan ho siguro.
Pero kung it's not a miracle, then it's got to be code saver. Ed, how can the youth participate?
Yes. Yung participation, mind you, we are running short of time, my friend. Sabi nga ni Congressman Rodriguez, Rufus, they are suspending yung ilang apat na provisions involving more or less security. Pending the result of the investigation to be conducted by a certain body, pending muna yung apat na provision na yun. In the meantime, they can go on with the rest of the provisions of the BBN. Ngayon, we are running short of time because under the agreement, there is a 1-year transition authority wherein the MILF should start taking over the government. Hindi ata mangyayari sapagkat wala na, short of time eh. Hindi matutupad yung isang taon na transition authority sapagkat granting for the sake of argument na maaprobaan ito by March, April. And so, give the COMELEC at least 4 to 6 months to undertake the preparation for a plebiscite. And then, ang magiging resulta, mga October, November pa, ang final approval. And so, wala na yung isang taon na binigay sa MILF under the process, peace process, wherein they can take over para mapalitan na po yung kasalukuyang ARMM. So, medyo malabo po ngayon with all this incident na patong-patong na. So, nawawalan tayo ng oras.
Nawalan tayo ng focus at the same time.
Yes, precisely.
Wow. Medyo mahirap yun. Do we still have questions from the floor? Okay. There being none, I would like to ask our friends, let's begin with Becky. Becky, looking forward, what do you see? Hindi naman Madam Auring ang tingin ko sa iyo, pero anong nakikita mong magaganap?
So looking forward, I would like to stress that the peace talks between the government and the MILF is not the peace process. So when you ask us what we can do, the peace process includes also what's happening on the ground. And maybe what happened in Mama Sapano reflects that what's happening on the tables is not going down, is not being realized at the ground level. So we need to do a lot of work on that. And as member of the Philippine Coalition for the International Criminal Court, I reiterate that the International Criminal Court, reference to the International Criminal Court is an option. Because International Criminal Court is non-partisan, the prosecutor will bring his own team to investigate. He will fund the investigation, and he will be able to talk to all parties concerned.
Okay, thank you. Eid, being a former spokesman of the MILF, how optimistic are you na may magaganap na maganda sa Bangsamoro Basic Law?
Well, siguro arrogante ako pag sabihin kong 100% na meron tayo. But the hope is still there. Yung pong pagnanasa natin ay nananatili pa rin. But reality on the ground, medyo mahirap na. Gahol tayo sa panahon. Outside that is yung legal issue, whether or not ito bang BBL ay papasa sa scrutiny ng korte, because definitely marami pong nagabang na mga grupo na the moment this law will be passed into law and signed by the President, mayroon na pong maglalabi sa Supreme Court questioning the constitutionality of the law. So, with all these issues, patong-patong na ika nga, so medyo kailangan nating ang matiwasay na kaisipan, pag-iisip, hindi po naman dapat ito gatungan, ika nga, ng lahat ng mga pananalitang lalo pong magpapadiin sa atin sa kadiliman. So dapat mangibabaw po yung malayang pananaw at ika nga mapag-isa ang ating bansa so that once and for all, this country will become a great nation. Thank you.
Narinig ko, this country can be great again. Parang Marcosian yan.
Sino bang umaayaw na tayo? Because I believe with the unity of all the citizens in this country, we can be a great nation.
Okay.
I do believe. For that matter, gusto ko lang i-share yung text kahapon na tanggap ko from Lipa. Sa sinasabi dito, Archbishop Ardiles will be celebrating Mass 3:30 p.m. yesterday ito. And so today at Lipa's Cathedral, all religious and lay leaders of the Archdiocese are expected to attend. His message will herald the start of the NTC-led struggle for regime change. Thank you.
Teka muna, NTC. Ano to? National Telecommunications
Transformation
Commission.
Council. Yes.
Ay, sa the National Telecommunications Commission.
Yes, mine. Yung amin, Bangsamoro. But I'm referring to itong pinanggalingan ng
National
text.
Transformation.
Transformation Council.
Okay.
Yes, not transition. Transformation Council.
Sina Archbishop
Si
Ardiles yata.
Cardinal, His Eminence Cardinal Vidal, ang chairman po nito.
All right. So, andyan tayo. Yung mga kaibigan ko narito, pakikalat na po nung inyong statement. You've already done. Okay. Father Jun, ano nakikita nyo sa kinabukasan?
Una, mag-bless muna ako ng premises ko bago yung Una, dapat ipakita talaga ng gobyerno, ng MILF, ng tayong lahat, na it cannot be business as usual. Kasi pag dinabing business as usual, talaga sa mga tao, we are hiding everything under the rug. So it cannot be business as usual. Katulad din ng Jabida Massacre yan sa Bangsamoro din, it can never be business as usual. Number 2 naman, hindi naman din pwede yung total all-out war. Ako, oppose ko yung all-out war. Kaya ang hiningi natin sa presidente lang, at sa gobyernong ito, decisive action within the parameters of law and the framework of our Constitution. Kahit yun, wala no? At saka yung talagang known international, sabihin natin mga protocol, na hindi naman maapektuhan ang ating peace process, pati yung ating BBL. Pero pagka nag-business as usual, will have decisive action, hindi magagalit talaga ang tao sa kanya. Kaya pag ano nangyari, madilim ang aking nakikita. at wala hong future. Kasi una ho, itong administrasyon ito ay nag-umpisa ng 2010 at matatapos ng 2016. Yung kanyang peace process ho rin, nag-umpisa din ng 2010 at matatapos din ng 2016. Kaya huwag ko tayong maniwala, it will go beyond 2016. Wala ngang history eh. So pag walang history, wala ring future. It will be only alive as long as this presidency is alive.
Okay. Okay. Father, from another OMI.
So after covering the papal visit and bringing to the fore yung kanyang inspiring and encouraging words on the Bangsamoro peace process. Diba sinabi niya yon? Na hindi nga sinabi ni Pinoy. Parang nangyari kay Pinoy, nagsumbong sa Papa, pero ang Pope nagsabi, I support the peace process in the Mindanao. So, for us Catholic media institution, it's a challenge for us to report the Masano incident with due considerations of the impact on the peace process. We need sobriety to be able to discuss these issues rationally. But also we need to be told the truth to be able to find our way of justice. In this time of overwhelming gloom and anger over what happened, yung sabihin natin to ask for unwavering support for the Bangsamoro Basic Law will have a negative and strong negative reaction to its passage. No? May nang nangyayari to the ground sa ibang sectors. But we must be committed to the peace process. Ilang taon na rin ako sa Mindanao, ilang giyera na rin ang nasaksiyan ko. Wala talagang ibang daan, kundi daan ng kapayapaan.
Okay.
And let us pray for that.
Thank you very much. Madam, sabi po ni Tracy, si Marwan daw was seen somewhere in Sulawesi. Sa Sulawesi, na may unconfirmed pero yun ang info. So kung si Marwan nasa Sulawesi, sino yung kinuna ng daliri? Yun. Ayan po, ayan po.
So, ibig lamang sabihin, dapat talaga hanapin natin ang katotohanan. Huwag tayong titigil sa mga naririnig natin sa kasalukuyan. Di ba? At ito lang siguro, I was so inspired by Santo Papa. 3 bagay yung sinabi niya. You think, but you do not stop just at the level of thinking. You must feel. And you do not stop at the level of feeling, you must act. No? So, yung pagtatagos niyan, yung thinking na yan, tama yung sabi ni Father Jun matagal ko nang kilala rin si Father Jun and I, we agree, dapat meron tayong historical context. Di ba? Dapat meron tayong konteksto nung ano nga ba ang nangyari. Ano yung nangyari nung nakaraan? Ano yung kalagayan natin ngayon? At katulad nung sabi ni Father Domingo, ano yung vision natin sa kinabukasan? Yun yung thinking natin. Dapat may teorya tayo. At kaya natin yan sapagkat maraming marunong na sa atin. Pero kinakailangan idaan ito sa discussions at proseso. Yung feeling na yon na sinasabi, dapat pakiramdaman natin. Ako, yung pulis, yung pinuntahan ko yung mga pamilya-pamilya nila, ipagpapatuloy namin yon dahil gusto kong ipaalam sa ating kapulisan at sa mga sundalo natin, meron silang karapatang pantao at ang Commission on Human Rights, hindi lang para rin sa mga kaliwa o dun sa mga farmers, kung hindi para sa lahat. Kasama na riyan ang mga sundalo at ang mga kapulisan. At kung kailangan nilang katarungan, handa tayo na ibigay ito sa kanila. Yun yung pakiramdam, no? At ganun din dun sa mga pamilya na mga Muslim na nasawi at saka yung mga bata at saka yung mga civilian that are now dislocated, no? 1,500 individuals yan sa ngayon. At yung action, sa pamamagitan lang yung pag-iisip natin at saka yung pakiramdam natin, gagawa tayo ng action natin. Pero dapat inclusive. Tayong lahat yan. At wag tatagos, wag maging exclusive, wag discriminatory. Kung hindi, ang ilalaban natin, ang kabutihan ng ating bayan, ang ating mamamayan, at ang pamantayan natin ay matamo natin ang kapayapaan at doon magsisimula ang katarungan at katotohanan. Yun lang po.
Thank you very much. Siguro let me end our presentation today with a simple quotation on leadership. It is better to lead from behind and to put others in front, especially when you celebrate victory when nice things occur. You take the front line when there is danger. The people will appreciate your leadership. And this comes from Nelson Mandela. So, thank you very much. Kung tatapusin natin itong ating pagtatanghal ngayon, may I request Father Jun Mercado to lead us in prayer, not only for the 44 fallen policemen, but for the civilians caught in crossfire, for the alleged Marwan who was found in a hut, and for everyone. Please lead us in prayer. May I request everybody to stand.
Siguro, just a moment of silence in our heart. We pray for all the casualties of this latest tragedy that befell the country. Heavenly Father, all merciful and all compassionate, we beg you to give us your light, to enlighten our mind, but also we beg you to give us also strength, to strengthen our heart, to feel that mercy and compassion for the victims of this tragedy and their families. But above all, also give us the right way. Lead us to that right way, not the way of the hypocrites and the way of those with political agenda, so that by walking in that path of righteousness, we may be able to find peace, lasting one, and real reconciliation between and among peoples of living faiths, between communities, and between and among us. And we ask this in thy holy name, now and forever. Amen.
Amen. May I request Eid Kabalu to lead us in prayer in Islam?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Malik yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.
Paki-translate mo naman. It's a uniform prayer. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So with that, we bring to a close our presentation today. Thank you.